Welcome to WCS Talks Unplugged, where we bring you real stories, real solutions for the mind and the planet. Today, we're sharing a special conversation originally released in April 2026 on the Earthlings 2.0 podcast, hosted by WCS founder Lisa Ann Pinkerton. Lisa Ann sits down with Karen Baert, CEO and co-founder of Ammonia, to explore ammonia, a compound that already plays a major role in feeding the world and may also help power a cleaner future. Link to the original episode and to Earthlings 2.0 can be found in the description of this episode. So settle in, take a breath, and enjoy this special episode with Karen Baert of Ammonia. Let's get unplugged.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Earthlings 2.0, the show where we imagine how we could be better versions of ourselves and build a collective future we actually want to live in. Today, our side mission centers on ammonia. It's one of the most produced chemicals in the world, and it's used as fertilizer in agriculture, refrigeration systems, and it plays a crucial role in the production of various chemicals and materials. But today, we're going to explore how ammonia is being developed as a cleaner fuel. You see, traditional methods of producing ammonia today, known as the Haber-Bosch process, have been recognized by organizations such as the American Chemical Society as being a significant contributor to global pollution. So our guest today is going to help us understand how we can retain all the benefits ammonia brings, the food security, global trade, and energy systems, while also reducing its climate and economic costs. But before we get there, I'm your host, Lisa Ann Pinkerton. I'm the CEO of the award-winning PR firm Technica Communications and the founder of Women in Cleantech and Sustainability. I am also recently the CEO of a new AI PR tech firm, Purview. Yes, clearly, I have a lot of ample free time. Not. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Now, every meal on your plate probably has ammonia to thank. It's the backbone of the fertilizer industry, and it's enabled modern agriculture to feed billions of people around the world. Of course, there are movements such as regenerative agriculture that indicate there are methods such as cover cropping and rotational grazing that could help farmers reduce the need for fertilizer by 50% or more. But that's a completely different show. In fact, we already did that show. It's episode 98. The challenge right now around the ammonia process is that it's highly energy intensive, and that energy comes from fossil fuels. And therefore, it's very polluting. But today's guest says there is a better way. And you know how much we love better ways here at Earthlings 2.0. Their approach to ammonia has won them the top prize of the Women in Cleantech pitch competition back in 2025, and they raised $7.5 million in seed funding in 2026 to expand their modular plant design. Our guest today is Karen Baert. He is the co-founder and CEO of Ammonia. That's a startup out of Stanford that's reinvented the way ammonia is produced, making it cleaner, safer, cheaper, and less energy intensive. Welcome, Karen, to the show.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and I'm so excited to be here. I can tell you I'm only involved in one startup, and I already feel like I have 3 jobs at the same time, so I'm really impressed about how you're running 3 shows at the same time.
Thank you. They're all labors of love, you know. My first question for you is around this topic of how ubiquitous ammonia is in our world. Can you help us understand in a little bit more detail how ammonia is bringing about a variety of benefits to modern society?
Absolutely. And this is one of my, if not my most favorite topic, because I think ammonia is such an underappreciated chemical. In fact, as you pointed out, it's the second most produced chemical on Earth. And more than half of the world's food is dependent on ammonia as a fertilizer. And on top of that, today, ammonia is also gaining traction in different industries. To be specific, ammonia will play a role as a maritime shipping fuel. So large deep sea ships like container ships and gas carriers will be running on ammonia in the future. And ammonia is also being used to redistribute renewable energy across the world. So it's becoming an energy factor. So today it's a $100 billion market. mainly as a fertilizer and also a chemical. And this market is expected to grow 2, 3, 4, 5x all the way up to potentially $500 billion and will play a role really across 4 different industries: maritime shipping, energy, fertilizers, and chemicals.
So, what is it about ammonia as a chemical that makes it so useful in a variety of different applications?
So ammonia is NH3. And so the big advantage that ammonia has over other chemicals is there's no carbon in the molecule, it's NH3. And so as a result, when you burn it, there's no CO2 emissions. And that makes it a really attractive fuel or energy carrier because it has a decent energy density. So an energy density that comes close to the energy density of hydrocarbons and fuels we're using today. But it has that big advantage that there's no CO2 emissions when you burn it.
And I mentioned in my intro that traditionally ammonia is made through the Haber-Bosch process. And your technology is sort of taking that process to like a 2.0 version. What are you doing differently that allows you to get the cleaner, better, faster, cheaper benefits out of ammonia?
Yeah, great question. So let's start from the beginning. In the 1800s, ammonia was actually found naturally. It was called guana. It was found in South America. It was essentially bird poop. And people were using that ammonia, applying it on the field so we could use our fields in a more productive way. In 1914, two now very famous scientists, Haber and Bosch, found a way to produce that same ammonia synthetically. And they did that by basically taking natural gas and putting that in a reactor at very high temperature and pressure and turning that into ammonia. That absolutely changed the course of history because that enabled us to use our land in a much more productive way and essentially doubled population growth. So that was 1914. Now, since then, there hasn't been a substantial disruption or innovation to that process. And things changed. Particularly now, we need to produce more ammonia, and we want to produce ammonia from a variety of sources, not just from natural gas or coal. And so the traditional Haber-Bosch process has the big challenge that it runs at extremely high temperatures and pressures. It runs at around 200 bar and around 500 or 600 degrees Celsius. That means that you have to run these systems at very large scale. It's an extremely centralized industry, and it's very, very expensive to build a plant like that. Ballpark, you're going to spend at least $1 billion to build a new facility. What we do at Ammonia is innovating on that process to enable lower cost and cleaner ammonia production. The core of that is an innovation in material science. So we add new materials to the synthesis reactor that enable us to produce ammonia at an order of magnitude lower pressure. We can run at as low as 20 bar instead of the traditional 200 bar, significantly lower temperatures. We can run at, let's say, 400, 500 degrees Celsius instead of the traditional 600. And we significantly increase the efficiency, the conversion efficiency of that process as well, from the traditional around 20 to 80%. Now, that is a game changer because now you can produce ammonia at much lower cost. You can also produce ammonia from cleaner sources, and you can produce ammonia closer to the end consumer.
That is fascinating. So, how would you do this practically? I mentioned you raised some money and you're going to build out a modular plant design. How are you going to implement this technology at scale?
So we started the company now almost 4 years ago with a tiny reactor. We were at technology readiness level 3, and the reactor is probably the size of the span here. Since then, we've moved all the way to technology readiness level 5. So we've been running a pre-pilot that is approximately my size at our own facilities for now over a year. And we've had really good performance as well as durability on that system. Now with the new funding, our next big step is turning that pre-pilot into a pilot. The pilot will get us to technology readiness level 6, is essentially fully de-risking the reactor itself. And with that, we're also going to get our first customer commitments to go build our first in-the-field system. That's our first of a kind or industrial demonstration. Will help us hit TRL, technology readiness level 7. And that system will be producing up to 10 tons per day. So that's the first system that will be in the field with a customer producing ammonia for a commercial application. From there, we're going to go to our full commercial scale system. as you mentioned, it's a modular 250 ton per day plant. That's equivalent to 100 megawatt, to give you a sense of kind of scale there. And that should be up and running in the field before the end of the decade.
That is very exciting. I'm impressed that you were able to do that in such a short period of time, especially with such a hard engineering challenge. How did you come up with this idea? To add what you said there's like other material inputs that you put into the chemical process and that allows you to make the ammonia at like 10 times lower pressure. Where did the aha moment come about?
It certainly took a lot of people and a lot of smart minds to come up with this solution. So many people helped us get there. The backstory is that I grew up as a sailor on the Belgian North Sea, and sailing is what got me really close to nature and made me decide in my teenager years that I wanted to focus on decarbonizing heavy industry, decarbonizing some of our hardest to abate sectors. And that brought me on a journey from chemical engineering in Belgium to renewable energy engineering in Germany. Germany is where I worked at my first few climate tech startups. And then I became a strategy consultant at Bain & Company, doing decarbonization strategies for big industrial chemical companies. And after all that time there, I felt strongly about wanting to be in the same space, but more focused on technology innovation. Because for us to decarbonize cost effectively, we need better technologies. We need technologies that are still in the lab today. So to do that, I moved to the Silicon Valley, did an MBA at Stanford, had a sprint at a venture capital investor at Breakthrough Energy Ventures. And throughout my time at Stanford was hyper focused on hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives, because I saw that as a solution to decarbonize heavy industry, hard to abate sectors. I spent a lot of time talking to experts in the hydrogen world to really understand what are the key challenges that we still need to solve in this industry. And I saw a lot of startups, a lot of great innovations in hydrogen itself. But then when I came across ammonia, I was immediately hooked by the potential that this molecule has, right? Today, it's the second most produced chemical on Earth. With the new use cases coming on, it can tap into it, can literally reduce 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And nobody is talking about it. And when I started looking at innovations in this space, I saw that the last significant innovation was 100 years ago. And there's only one startup. When I started Ammonia, there was one startup globally doing anything on innovating on this process. So that made me really, really motivated to go look at, okay, in ammonia production, what technologies do we need to bring to the market to enable lower cost ammonia production? Now, I can tell you, I'm not as technically smart as Haber and Bosch. Do not have the technical chops to come up with a solution that is better than what they invented in 1914. They won the Nobel Prize for it, by the way. So what I did is I used my student email that I had at the time through my MBA to reach out to all the labs and universities in the world that were doing anything on ammonia production innovation. Talk to all of them and really try to evaluate the different technologies based on two fundamental criteria. One was, is this a technology we can get to the market within the next 5 to 10 years? Because we don't have time to lose to decarbonize this planet, and I don't have the patience to be in the lab for another 10 years. And the second criteria was basically techno-economics, like fundamentals. Can this be cheaper? Based on the fundamentals of this technology, can this be cheaper than the traditional Haber-Bosch process? And I came across one technology that two labs in the world had been looking at, one in the US, one in the UK, that really answered, basically met the needs of these two criteria that I had set. I brought the technology to the PhD at Stanford that I respected most for his technical jobs, Tristan, who is now my co-founder. And I had brought a few other technologies to him, and every time he said, like, this is not going to work, this is not going to work. And when I brought him this technology, he was really quiet for a while. He looked at it and he said, this is really interesting. And I happen to have worked with these materials in my PhD. And I guess the rest is history. Then we started working together, and soon enough, we did our first experiment in a basement. We saw that it worked, and we started Ammonia together.
That's really cool because I like it when like this idea pops into someone's head and then they just can't let it go. And you start exploring it and you find people who want to support you in it, some either researchers, labs, co-founder, and then it just sort of starts to take on a life of its own.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what is particular in this story as well is that it was not a technology push, right? It was not a we have this thing and we need to find an application in the market. It was the opposite. It was a market pull, right? We had done so much work in the market, saw that there was a big opportunity in the market, and then went to go look for a technology that would basically meet the needs of this market opportunity.
The future of climate leadership is being built right now, and women are leading the way. Women in Cleantech and Sustainability is a global community connecting professionals across climate, energy, and sustainability who are working to build a cleaner, more equitable future. Through mentorship, career opportunities, founder support, and a powerful global network, WCS is helping accelerate the next generation of climate leaders. And now, through our podcast, WCS Talks Unplugged, you'll hear the real stories behind the work, the challenges, breakthroughs, and ideas shaping the clean economy. If you care about climate innovation, leadership, and building solutions that matter, this community is for you. Visit womenincleantechsustainability.org to learn more. Join the network and get involved, because solving climate change takes all of us.
And then there's these other opportunities too that we've touched on only a little bit. And I want to explore that a little bit more. So the idea of ammonia being a hydrogen carrier or even potentially a zero carbon fuel in and of itself. So how do you see your work contributing to that vision?
So, as mentioned today, ammonia is used as a fertilizer. Ammonia is NH3. Today, it's used for its nitrogen content. In the future, ammonia is still going to be used for its nitrogen content, and that market is going to grow as kind of we will have more mouths to feed. But on top of that, there's two big new use cases for ammonia in the energy world. In these use cases, ammonia is actually used for its hydrogen content. It's used as an energy source, as an energy vector. And as mentioned, the big advantage that ammonia has there compared to hydrocarbons is that there's no carbon in the molecule. So there's zero CO2 emissions when you burn it. The big advantage that ammonia has there compared to hydrogen, which is actually the only other zero carbon fuel out there, is that ammonia has a much higher energy density and it is much easier to transport and store. So with that, there's two big new use cases for ammonia that will significantly increase its impact as well as the market size. The first one is ammonia as a maritime shipping fuel. So maritime shipping represents 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions today. And the fuel they use is mainly maritime fuel oil. It is the dirtiest fuel, one of the dirtiest fuels out there. It's literally what we call the bottom of the barrel. These big ships, if you think about decarbonizing them, it is really hard to electrify. Essentially, you cannot have enough batteries or batteries that are energy dense enough to do that. So you really need a fuel there. And ammonia is identified as one of the only, if not the only option for them to decarbonize effectively at the scale that is needed. So today, there's already 70 ammonia-fueled ships ordered. So a lot of the big shipping companies globally are switching out their engines to engines that can run on ammonia. A few, I think there's around 4 or 5 pilot boats already running on ammonia today. So the solution is out there. And now it's really about scaling up the deployment. So getting more ships in the water running on ammonia. And of course, also expanding the ammonia bunkering and fueling opportunities and then infrastructure all over the world. So that's the first new use case. Ammonia as a maritime shipping fuel for deep sea shipping, container ships and gas carriers. The second one, which you alluded to, hydrogen carrier, I like to frame it more as an energy carrier. What is the opportunity there? And this is actually a really interesting and relevant opportunity in the current geopolitical climate, is that there are multiple geographies in the world that are looking to decarbonize, but that do not have enough renewable energy resources locally. To give you one example, Europe wants to decarbonize, but there's not enough space and, let's say, potential for solar and wind to do that locally or to fully do that locally. Similar situation with Japan. These countries are looking to import energy through ammonia. So what's happening is that in areas where there's abundant renewable resources, they're building large ammonia facilities that run on renewables. And then that ammonia is shipped across the world over the ocean to locations that need that power, that need that energy. And so the ammonia will be imported at these different locations. This is an amazing opportunity for these, let's say, kind of more emerging markets to become energy exporters. So great examples are like South America, China, India, Australia, areas that used to import fossil fuels can now actually become energy exporters by exporting clean power in the form of ammonia. And it's also a great opportunity for geographies like Japan, South Korea, and Europe to basically have a diversified energy import because that clean ammonia can come from a lot of different locations. It makes them more independent from oil and gas majors and gives them the opportunity to have clean energy to decarbonize their power and industry sectors.
And there's these second and third order effects that we may not even realize until some of this is implemented. Like you mentioned, 2% of global emissions come from maritime shipping, right? And how much of that is just shipping diesel fuel and gasoline around the world? So if local communities are able to start producing their own ammonia for energy, then we're not going to be shipping around that fuel so much, let alone powering the ships with the dirty diesel.
I mean, what you're saying is absolutely right. There's actually a lot of synergies in the sense that there's going to be more gas carriers that are shipping ammonia around, and these will also run on ammonia, which of course comes with cost benefits and synergies.
And so just switching gears a little bit, you won the Women in Cleantech and Sustainability Pitch Competition in 2025. You competed against a wide variety of other companies. And I'm curious to know, how did that pitch competition help support you in your business?
It was an amazing opportunity. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. First and foremost, it was so inspiring to be around other female leaders in clean energy and sustainability that are working on really, really cool and impressive solutions. And secondly, there were a lot of great investors and kind of ecosystem representatives in the room. I've had a lot of really valuable follow-ups, people that put me in touch with investors that were in the room that wanted to learn more. And so it created this whole ripple effect of kind of great opportunities for the company.
That's good to hear. I really like it when UCS actually is able to deliver on the support that it wants to provide people such as yourself. Because as people who work within the organization, we don't often ever get to hear about how the work we did in this little moment of your life helped to spur other benefits for you. It's like an iceberg, right? We only know what's on the top, and there's all this stuff happening below that we often don't see. So thank you for that feedback. As you're doing this fundraise, sometimes women will say that they experience fundraising as a more difficult process simply because of their gender. I'm curious to know, what was your experience?
Generally don't like to focus on the I'm a woman founder, I'm a woman CEO. I like to focus on I'm here to bring this technology to the market, to get the impact that I'm looking for and that our team is looking for. And taking a step back, I believe that, I think a lot of us, hopefully most of us, agree that more diverse talent leads to a better outcome, right? And that diversity is really across its gender, but it's socioeconomics, it's racial, it's really diversity across areas. And it's true when we look at, especially kind of in heavy industry energy, there's not enough women out there. There's not enough diverse talent out there. And what gives me hope and what inspires me is see other diverse talent around me doing it, going for it, waking up in the morning and fighting for it. And I think the more we do that, the more we see examples around us, the more we elevate others and inspire and motivate others to go do it. And that's really what I want to focus on. I've seen so many incredible female and diverse kind of leaders in this space, but we need so much more. And I think that's why it's so important that there's initiatives like WCS that elevate a diverse talent and that also, help us connect with each other so we can help each other and lift each other up.
There was a piece of research that came out of probably Stanford, actually, that inspired me to start WCS, my gosh, 15 years ago, which was this idea that people in general do not aspire to certain careers or levels of position until they've seen somebody who looks like them achieve it already. And when we started WCS, there just weren't enough female voices out there. And so we started WCS Talks as a way to specifically highlight those voices on stage and just bring more women speakers out of the woodwork and show how successful they have been to help inspire others. How do you hope your role as the CEO and co-founder of Ammonia is helping to inspire other people?
When I think about where we are today with Amobia, and I'm so proud of what our team has been able to achieve yet. And of course, we're just still in the beginning of hopefully a long journey. I really think back about the shoulders of the giants I've been standing on. And there's so many female and male leaders that have inspired me, that have helped me grow, that have given me the confidence, that have given me that additional kind of introduction, support, whatever it is. And my hope and my goal is to be able to be a little bit of that for other people, for the next generation of leaders, for the next generation of female and male founders and CEOs, because it really takes all of us.
Yeah, it does. And when I started leading people, first as a news reporter and editor, and then at the big PR firm that I worked for, and then Technica and WCS, I started to realize that I had sort of picked up these leadership traits that weren't necessarily in alignment with who I was, because I was just mimicking how I'd been led in the past, for better or for worse. And I had to sort of take a step back and think, okay, how do I like to lead? And then when I learned some research later about sort of some of the typical ways that many women lead, I was like, I recognized myself in those attributes. And that gave me more confidence to actually lead in that way. How do you think of yourself as a leader?
I think as a founder in our industry, it's so important to have the confidence that we can do this and we can make a difference, because, oh God, every day you have so many challenges and so many difficult things that, that cross your path, and you need a certain kind of type of confidence, but also optimism that you will figure it out. And at the same time, I think you need that deep humility to know what you know and know what you don't know, and surround yourself by people that are smarter than you in certain areas and better than you in certain areas. And I think it's that combination that is really, really important when you're a founder, especially kind of hard tech, long timeline, challenging industries.
Yeah. What advice do you have for women who are still, maybe they're still going to university, they haven't yet started their career, but they're in the deep science and technical space? What advice do you have for them, having gone through that experience yourself?
I feel like something I hear a lot around me from female leaders, and again, more broadly, diverse talent in this space, is but once I've achieved this, I will be ready to do this big thing. Or once I get to that milestone, I will be ready to do that thing. And I think you never have all the things you need to have to be able to take that big leap, right? But at some point, you just gotta go for it. You gotta take the jump, and again, know that you can stand on the shoulders of other people who came before you. Know that you have amazing resources around you who can help you. And as long as you have the humility to know what you know and know what you don't know, and surround yourself by giants, you will figure it out.
Yeah, trusting yourself and knowing hey, I trust myself to be resourceful, learn what I need to learn on the fly as I notice I need to learn it or do it, instead of having all of my expertise lined up, ready to go, and then executing. It's just having confidence in yourself, right? That you're going to do the thing because you know yourself and you're not going to let it go. Maybe eventually you might, but when you're starting something, you don't want to let it go.
Exactly. And the other thing I think about a lot is again, and especially startups in hard tech, deep tech, these are long timelines. It's so important and it's a marathon. It's so important to, take the long view and not get too high when things are going well or too low when there's disappointments, because ultimately it's a marathon, and so you gotta take it day by day. And I think when you're like deeply inherently passionate about the end goal and what you are working towards and fighting for, that really helps to kind of deal with the daily highs and lows in a more in a more balanced way.
What's a book that you read recently or long ago that still sticks with you, and why?
A book that I recently read that I loved, that is not necessarily a business book, but I think a lot of the learnings are very relevant in my professional life, is called The Courage to Be Disliked. And it talks a lot about the importance to be self-driven and inner motivated and not be swayed by what other people think. And I think a lot about that in my work with Ammobia, and goes back to something that I mentioned earlier. When you are very focused on kind of what you're looking to achieve, when it comes very kind of natural because it's something that is so core to kind of who you are and aligned with your values, you're not too like impacted by the day to day, like what people say, what people think. You're really kind of focused on that end goal, and it gives you a lot of clarity, and it helps you deal with a lot of challenges.
Yeah, it fits with something my mentor said, that it's like people sit around waiting for the quote unquote motivation to do the things, but the motivation comes after you get started. Like, you have to be in
Mhm.
action first, and then you feel motivated to continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if I may, I need to add a second one, which is The Alchemy of Air. This is actually a book that we give every team member that joins Ammobia. And it's a book about the Haber-Bosch process. And it essentially talks about how that innovation in 1914 altered the course of history. It affected how first and the Second World War kind of evolved. It altered food security. It really changed the course of history in so many ways. And I think it's a fascinating book about how science and technology can really change the world for the better.
Well, I'm very impressed with what you're doing, and I think you are going to change the world. So thank you for all of your hard work in this effort, because I know it's a lot. It's very difficult, I'm sure. Hard engineering challenges are not for the faint of heart. So I appreciate that you are walking down this road for the rest of us and make the world a better place.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And it was such a pleasure and privilege to talk to you. And all of Mobia's accomplishments are a tribute to the incredible team and everyone that works hard every day against the odds. So thank you for having me, and we'll be in touch.
You're welcome. And thank you, Earthlings, for joining us today as well. We'll see you again on another turn of this beautiful blue-green space flower that we call home.
That's it for today's episode of WCS Talks Unplugged, where we share real stories, real solutions for the mind and the planet. A huge thank you to Karen Baert for sharing Ammobia's work and vision, and to Lisa Ann Pinkerton and Earthlings 2.0 for this original conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who cares about climate innovation, clean industry, or the future of sustainable fuels. This podcast is brought to you by Women in Cleantech and Sustainability, a global community elevating women's leadership and accelerating climate solutions. To learn more, become a member, or get involved, visit womenincleantechsustainability.org. Until next time, stay inspired, stay engaged, and as always, stay unplugged.